Wasn't I supposed to be better? Hadn't I recovered from these panic attacks years ago? I guess relapse has a way of finding each of us. All my life I'd been resilient, working my way around obstacles. No finances to finish college. I worked 2 jobs to cover tuition and rent. Not enough money for a car. I hustled to earn credit to qualify for a lease. No slush fund to pay for a wedding. I emptied 2 years of savings into a tight budget, starting with a $300 wedding dress. No matter what doors slammed in life, I rebounded with ways to shove them open. There was no obstacle that couldn't be overcome with grit and a dash of elbow grease. But here was one door I could not open. No amount of working or achievement or self-talk could break me out of this bathroom prison high above the sea. I was left with myself, my frailty, my inability to escape, and it terrified me. And the truth was, I wasn't terrified of the heavy wooden door or the unyielding antique lock. I was terrified of being trapped, terrified of being alone and witnessing my body's outrage. I was terrified of me. What could I do under this duress? Even though I wasn't in harm's way, it mattered not, because the greatest perpetrator of harm was tucked inside my mind. I worked the loops of panic and terror over and over, searching for any way of escape. Then I looked up. At the top of the wall, I noticed a small arched window, approximately 20 inches tall and 18 inches wide. I toggled the antique latch, and to my surprise, it opened. I squealed in overwhelming disbelief, and tears erupted. Could it be? If I hoisted myself up on the tank of the toilet, I could jimmy my body through the window head first. Would my hips fit? It didn't matter. Rescue was in sight, and I was going for it. Once my body was out to my waist, I inhaled deeply, filling my lungs with cold, salty air. I heard the seagulls squawking, the ocean waves pounding, nature doing what it does, while my life seemed to be spiraling out of control. I kept pushing, kept shoving my hips and legs until I toppled onto the rocks overlooking the waves crashing below. I thought my thigh muscles would never stop convulsing. Crouching there in a fetal position, I wept. Everything I had faced 6 years prior, the panic attacks, the unbearable anxiety, the meltdowns, came flooding back, along with all the shame and weakness. I'd struggled with panic attacks daily in the year after our family moved to Manhattan, mostly when I found myself in confined spaces like planes, trains, or shoulder-to-shoulder crowds. Elevators were the worst. At Bloomingdale's, I stood at the first-floor bank of elevators for 20 minutes and watched, waiting for the perfect conditions to hop on. At least 2 other people on the elevator, but no more than 5. Once those conditions were finally met, I walked in, and as the doors clamped shut, my heart froze. I stood, holding my breath, fists clenched until the doors opened at the 9th floor. No matter how many times I made that trip, the panic was always the same. On the night of September 20th, 2011, I cried out to God for relief, and He flooded me with peace. In the years following, I traveled and spoke about freedom from panic, and I'd even written You Are Free, a book about finding freedom from anxiety. So why had it returned now 7 years later? I asked God, am I a fraud? How was it that I could speak to so many people about being healed of panic disorder, write a book about it, pray for others to find healing, and find myself facing a panic attack more severe than any attack I'd experienced in Bloomingdale's? I stared blankly across the ocean, let the wind whip against my tear-stained cheeks, the questions ringing in my ears. I knew God saw me with compassion and tenderness, but He wasn't responding to my questions. Not yet. As my heartbeat slowed to its resting rate, I rallied and went to meet up with my friends. I could hear the rest of the group laughing down the block. They were swept up in conversation, so I slipped in with a nod. I listened with a pasted-on smile 1,000 miles away from whatever they were saying. The rest of the day was a blur. I kept slipping away to look out across the Pacific, mysterious and vast, as if God would use His handiwork to give me an answer.